Welcome to the Bear Archery Podcast and another Train Wild special. This month, I've got a very special guest, a friend of mine, Dr. Preston Ward, Mr. Mountain Physio. I have recently been having quite a bit of shoulder pain when I shoot, and so I went through some stuff with Preston on how to keep healthy shoulders. He did a lot of movements with me to help me get back to the point where I can shoot without it hurting. And so I just thought, the number one reason that most people quit shooting bows, the number one reason that most people have to hang up the bow and not be able to shoot anymore is because of shoulder pain, or at least that's where it starts. And so I just thought that we should have Preston on to talk about things that we should do, things that we can do to keep healthy shoulders, to keep being able to shoot our bow longer, and strengthen our shoulders. And we talk a lot about different movements you can do. If you are having pain, we talk about some movements you can do just in everyday life, preventative care to help keep your shoulders healthy for the long haul. It's a very informative episode. I hope you enjoy it. This episode is brought to you by Mountain Tough. This entire Train Wild series is brought to you by Mountain Tough. So guys, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learn a lot, and I hope that you will get some benefit to keep your shoulders healthy in this episode.
With over 90 years of innovation, Bear Archery continues pushing toward the goal of founder Fred Bear, making archery accessible for all. Fred believed the history of the bow and arrow were the history of mankind, and everyone should immerse themselves in the outdoor experience. Welcome to the Bear Archery Podcast, where the mission is simple: to hunt, grow, and inspire others.
Guys, I am never going to tell you that you have to be 10% body fat or that you have to be able to run a marathon in order to enjoy hunting. You don't even have to be able to complete a CrossFit workout. However, if I want to be able to hunt for a long time and enjoy the great outdoors and continue to chase wild game, then I have to do some things to remain healthy. Why? Well, because I can't bow hunt when I'm 80, 85 if I don't take care of myself now. Guys, First Form makes some of the best supplements that you will ever find. I got so tired of overpaying for watered down, mediocre supplements just because they were branded for the outdoors. First Form is one of the biggest and best supplement companies in the world. The best news is they care about outdoorsmen and they care about hunters because they are outdoorsmen and they are hunters. So guys, I would highly encourage you to check out First Form, not just for your professional athletes, not just for the guys who are constantly in the gym working out, not just for the guys who want to get as big and as fit as they possibly can, but for everyday guys who just want to be around to see their kids graduate, for everyday mom and dads who just want to be healthy and live a happy lifestyle and enjoy time with their kids, for the everyday bow hunter that just wants to ensure they do some things to stay healthy and be able to hunt longer. There are some products for everyday health that everybody should be taking, whether you're an athlete or not. So guys, click the link in the description of this episode to start shopping some of my favorite products from First Form. And guys, I would highly encourage you to start doing some things to ensure your future for bow hunting, to ensure that you're able to enjoy the sport that you love so much for a long time. Guys, I would love to help you out. If you have any questions about what I take or why I take it, shoot me an email, thehunting101podcast@gmail.com. I would love to give you some advice on what products would be a good fit for you and to help you reach your goals. So guys, definitely click the link in the description of this episode to start shopping some of my favorite everyday health products from First Form, some of my favorite proteins, vitamins, minerals, electrolytes, some of the favorite products that anybody and everybody should be taking in order to live a happier, healthier lifestyle. But guys, don't hesitate to reach out and ask me any kind of questions. I would love to help you and love to see you live your happiest, healthiest life. Dr. Preston Ward, the man behind Mountain Physio. Before we jump in, man, give us an introduction to yourself. You just launched your new academy. What all you got going on over there, dude?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's always fun to jump on these. But yeah, I appreciate that. So introduction to me is I'm a physical therapist, live here in Utah. Let's see. We've had our practice Mountain Physio for over 5 years now. So we're in our 5th year, going on our 6th now. Designed it specifically to work with hunters and archers. I was in an archery shop. Someone was complaining of shoulder pain. So I said, hey, there should be a physical therapist working with hunters. Hunting is a sport. And we know that even now more than ever, there's more emphasis that goes into it, preparation and stuff. So built our practice and now we're growing. We have a team of 9 people now working with us, which is super exciting. Therapists across the country. So really cool. We're growing like that. Most recently, about 2.5 years ago, had this idea to put together this online platform, educational platform, a healthcare platform. So we developed our Mountain Physio Academy and launched the academy, and it's going really well. And that's a whole entity in and of itself. It's definitely a getting hunt ready training program. It's education, it's rehab, it's recovery, it's all sorts of things. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
One of the cool things with that is we'll probably get into our specialty is working one-on-one with individuals. And so making sure that we do face-to-face calls and then really kind of tailor programs to people. So that's a little bit about me. Big time hunter, hunted my whole entire life, married, got a kid, dogs, mules, all sorts of things.
Very cool, man. No, so for those of you who are just now tuning in, we have just launched. So last month we launched our Train Wild special, and it is in partnership with Mountain Tough. And basically, once a month we come to you with a special focused on something physical, whether it's a training session, whether it's rehabbing an injury, whether it's diet, whether it's supplementation, getting prepared for the mountain, whatever. And so this month I wanted to bring Preston on because I was struggling with some shoulder pain, and this was kind of a little bit of backstory. And just so you know, I firmly believe the number one reason that people quit shooting archery up into their years, first reason is shoulder pain. And so I thought this is a very important topic to help people keep healthy shoulders. So I had this just kind of nagging pain, and it really started super small. I mean, the first shot of the day, it would hurt, and then it wouldn't hurt anymore. And that started, end of last year, I would say. And then it got to where first couple shots it hurt, but never outside of shooting, it never hurt. And really after the first 2 shots, it didn't hurt anymore. And it just kind of kept building to the point where it just hurt to shoot every time. And so I thought, well, I need to talk to Preston because he's the man, and I need to talk to him. And so we got on a video call, and you gave me some movements and some exercises to help keep a healthy shoulder and to help, kind of fix that injury and what I had done. So before we jump into, and you can talk specifically to what you saw in me, but what do you think the number one causes are for shoulder injury when it comes to archery, and how can we prevent those injuries?
Yeah, it's a great question. I just was on cruising through some social media last night and everything, and saw Lancaster made a post about kind of something similar of like, hey, what's the best exercise? And so I was like, well, and it was funny because I thought, there was like 80 or 90, 100 different comments on there. And so there's a lot of variation. And I bring that up because I was like, okay, I'll jump on and I'll chime in on what we see and what the data really supports and things like that. And so there's a lot of variability, but there's also a lot of proclaimed experts out there, we'll say, on social media. And so making sure that you're doing the right things and making sure that you're getting that right, evaluation is really important. So to answer your question, some of the things, or one of the main reasons certainly has got to be the rotator cuff. Now, a lot of people will have issues, shoulder pain, shooting too much, not shooting, enough, not strong enough. overcompensating in other areas. But that rotator cuff is extremely important. And the nice thing is we have some really good evidence to support how strong that rotator cuff needs to be. So when I go travel with the US team and I test them and stuff, I'm testing them on these muscles to see how strong they are. And so now it's pretty fun. I've been doing this for, like I said, 5 years, and we have a really big data set to say, like, people need to be strengthening their rotator cuff. They need to be continuing to do those exercises if they want to continue to shoot into their later years. Now, there was a cool post a year ago of an individual who was shooting a bow over the age of 100. So they were continuing to shoot their bow. And so people think, oh, it's a sport that you can only continue until you're 60, until that shoulder wears out. Well, there's a lot that you can do to prevent that shoulder from wearing out. I hate that term anyways, but there's a lot that you can do to work on your shoulder. So a lot of, not even just rehab, but a lot of what we do is preventative stuff. And so prevention on these things to continue to help people to shoot. And so anyways, to answer your question, a lot of rotator cuff. That's one of probably the biggest issues that we see where there's some weakness, or what happens is people continue to live a very active life. They continue to shoot their bow, but I don't know if, I guess everyone realizes, but as we age, at each year, you have muscle loss, you have atrophy that just happens after the age of 25, 30 years old. And then as you're older, it significantly goes down. And so that atrophy or that muscle loss is what we're trying to fight. And so really strengthening. So just pulling your bow back is good. It's a great exercise, but adding to that is really key.
Yeah. Yeah. Something definitely happens when you turn 30. And it just kind of sucks, and people always talked about it. And I'm like, no, dude, 30, that's not old. And sure enough, when you turn 30, it's like, man, why does it make that noise? Like, why is my knees cracking? Why is my elbows popping?
Yeah.
But it just happens, man. So what did you specifically, because you ran me through some, I don't want to say tests, but some movements to see how things were. So what did you see when you were looking at that, and what can people do to figure out, like, so what are some things people can do at home to decide, okay, is this an injury? Like, do I need to go to the doctor, or can I just do some movements to, loosen things up and get things working properly?
Yeah. Yeah. So first thing that I want to do, so I do run people through, some of our tests. So these are our tests that, we learn in school. And, anyways, so a lot of them are movement tests, mobility tests, strength tests, those sorts of things. And that's where it's really important, is to have that data, to see how things are going. And so the first thing that I do, the nice thing about this is on my website, you can book a free consultation, and I can run people through some of these. So anyways, that's a really cool feature that we're doing, that we've had forever. But anyways, so as we run people through some movements, what I'm looking for first is their mobility. Like with shooting a bow, you have to have certain shoulder mobility. And so looking at your range of motion, looking at all those sorts of things. Now, for the majority of people, like, that does look pretty good. And so then we can kind of find some areas that's lacking. A lot of times it's lacking in the posterior shoulder. So that tightness in that posterior shoulder. So a little bit of mobility work there can go a long way. And ultimately what that's doing to the joint is it's allowing it to freely move, so that when you are getting into these positions of drawing, it's not getting bound up, for lack of better terms there. So mobility, range of motion is a good thing. Do people have, full range of motion over their head? If they're not, then that's something that we should definitely look at, jump on a call. Another thing would be, reaching behind your back. Like you're scratching you're scratching your back. So that's another really good thing to look at. And if people are lacking there, then there's exercises and mobility treatments that we can do. And even soft tissue work. I do a lot of that when I go to like the 3D events or even here in Utah. And so, anyways, there's a lot of soft tissue work that can be done, but there's a lot of that I can teach people to do as well. So then we look at that mobility, that range of motion. And then a big thing with archery certainly is what I want to do is look at how they're shooting. So that's a big thing as well. So running them through an analysis of how they're shooting. Now, for the most part, people shoot pretty good. There are some things, that are make people a little bit more prone to injury. And I was just working with a gentleman last night in his I think his 60 or so. And we were kind of walking through the whole mechanics and everything. I had him here in my office and we were walking through the whole mechanics and doing that sort of thing. But anyway, so I like to watch people shoot. And then after that, I like to really see, get really good data on their strength numbers. Because again, that strength is such a critical factor for shooting and longevity. And it needs to be appropriately strengthened. And it's really strengthened that rotator cuff because of the role that the rotator cuff plays in the entire draw process.
Right. Now you said something, and I don't remember the verbiage you used, but testing the actual strength of the rotator cuff. A, how are you doing that? And B, because you mentioned looking for a specific, when we were doing this, you mentioned looking for a specific like percentage. So walk me through, like, what is all that? Walk me through how you're testing the rotator cuff, what you're looking for number wise, like how you get all that.
Yeah. So what we do, there's a couple different devices. I've used a bow scale. So you and I used a bow scale. That's a good way. You can get a pretty good accurate number that way. I've compared it to some of the more accurate testing procedures or testing devices that we have. It's called a handheld dynamometer. So basically it's a load scale or a force gauge there to tell you how much force you're pushing. The hard part, and I will say the one limitation with that is the ability to cheat, basically, that you can compensate with other muscles and things like that, and you can lean into these things. So anyways, the whole idea with what I did with you is to really get a number. And when I say that, like objective data, like within again, I kind of go back to, there's a lot of proclaimed experts out there. And that's great. There's a lot of good things to do. There's a lot of good, information, a lot of good exercises, but you got to really kind of like sift through that data to see what is accurate. So when I'm pulling up these numbers, and the reality of this in general, sure everyone listening to this, we're all big bow hunters, archers, eat, breathe, sleep, drink archery. And the reality of it is, archery really isn't that big of a sport. At least it doesn't bring in a lot of money it's not like skiing. It's not like football and sorts of things. So there's not a lot of data on these things. That's why for me, it's really important and I love the sport so much, to really push that data and find this data out. So with that said, you're testing your external rotation strength, and you can test multiple muscles, but one of them in particular is that external rotation of the rotator cuff. And so what we're looking for is a number that's close to 20%. Now, the majority of people are not even near that. And so it begs the question, and I don't just pull that number up out of, just pull it up out of because it's what I want people to be at. With the data that's been tested. Now these are for mostly healthy, young 18-year-old individuals. Their shoulders, when they had very little or no pain at all, really it was no pain, healthy shoulders, they were at 20% of their body weight. They tested with handheld dynamometers. Again, you can get pretty close with the bow scale. And the whole idea is 20% of your body weight. I've seen ranges from I mean, really, I've seen ranges from like 5% all the way up to 24%. The ranges when they are more painful and they hurt seem to be less than that 16, 18% mark. And so even within archery, we have a lot of data, not in archery, but in the other research realm, PT realm, rehab realm, training realm, we have a lot of data to say 20% for healthy shoulders. In the archery realm, it seems to be pretty dang close to that same number. And so we're running with that until we have more data, until we have more trials out there, reviews, things like that, systematic reviews, randomized controlled trials. And so that's what I'm really trying to do, is get some of that data to support our sport more. So anyways.
Now I was not pulling 20%. And at first I felt like, well, crap, what do I work out for? Like, I thought I was kind of strong. So this is something that, how do you train it? Like, how do you strengthen it? Because I do think you're right. Just watching most people even try to, draw a bow, even try to get into the sport of archery, really, no matter how strong they are, you notice, man, you're using a different movement. Like, you don't train this at all. You don't train this movement at all. So what are some movements you can do to strengthen that rotator cuff?
Yeah. That's a great question. So there's some, like, if anyone's been to PT, if anyone's done some rehab, if anyone Googles probably rotator cuff exercises, seeing me at all, they're doing some of that rotation. So that rotational movement, pushing out, like, arm to your side, rotating your arm outward, pulling inward, with exercise bands or weights or anything, or you can do it with a band here, rotating back like this. So there's lots of variables, but ultimately what you want is multiplanar motions within that shoulder, as well as a lot of rotational aspect to it. And then so then where it comes in is like, bands versus dumbbells or barbells or anything like that. Yes, you can use all of them. They're all good. It just depends on, sometimes people will use the dumbbells, for example, and they're standing, holding the dumbbell, just lifting it out to the side. Well, that's really not working that rotator cuff that much. It's really working your bicep just as you're rotating. And so you have to kind of play with those variables. That's why exercise bands help a lot, because you're getting more resistance each time in that plane. And so a lot of rotational movements. Now, I will say that there's some really good EMG evidence. So when I go through the evidence and look at the different exercises and when we put together our programs, and what the Academy is really built on is this research to say, like, these are the exercises because they have the highest EMG. And so, and what that is electromyogram, where they put basically needles in muscles to see what the activation is when they do certain muscles, or when they do certain exercises, And so an overhead press is a great exercise. You activate a lot of the rotator cuff with an overhead press. But a lot of people are just like you, where they're like, gosh, I'm in the gym, regularly. They have a gym, they have a home gym. You have an awesome place there. But they're working out constantly, and they're like, and I'm still weak there. Well, yes, you are, because it really takes just a little bit more effort, and not even effort, but just focus on those muscles, that really builds that area up. And so it's been awesome to see that people, as they do that, then they work on their shoulder, they increase their shoulder strength, they increase their cuff percentage and stuff. And the majority of people have less shoulder pain after doing it. And so there's a lot of things. I'm not saying that, weightlifting and benching, rowing, forward arm raises, lateral arm raises, push-ups a really good one, a push-up with a plus. So that's like basically a bench, right? A lot of things target that rotator cuff. So people are still, when they're exercising or working out, they're still getting that, they're still targeting the musculature, I should say, or maybe not even targeting, but they're getting those muscles. It's not like they don't fire. It's not like they're not turned on because they're stabilizing your shoulder. It's just, can't we be a little bit more specific with our training and our exercises? And that's what we do, is we want to be a lot more specific and probably a lot more repetition. So when you and I talked, it was like, okay, 3 sets of 15 or even 4 sets of, 20 repetitions. So you're getting tons of repetitions in a single area, or in a single movement there, because we're trying to really build up that muscle too. So anyways.
Yeah. So what are some, okay, well, first, before we get there, do you recommend these movements that we're talking about and strengthening that rotator cuff? Do you recommend sprinkling those in with regular training, or do you recommend, 10 minutes in the morning, or how do you recommend doing that? Do you recommend putting it in with regular gym exercises, or is this something separate? Should you do this, on its own?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think sprinkling them in is awesome. I think that's a great way to do it. I don't know if it's, again, I'm going to go back to what we have in the data sets, that I don't know if it necessarily matters, because I don't know if we have the data to say, like, you have to do it here, you have to do it there. But I think it makes sense to do it as much as you can. It makes sense to do a lot of these before you're going to shoot. It makes sense to sprinkle them in with other functional movements, I'm gonna say. But it also makes sense, like, from a data scientific standpoint, from a rehab standpoint, if I'm rehabbing and not just doing the training, that doing them regularly 5 or 6 days a week, and, back to back consecutively, really kind of pushing yourself so you're getting a lot more targeted focus again, is really helps people get better. And that's how people get better sooner. And so I think it depends on where you're at. I think it depends if you're training, if you're just doing some prevention, maybe that's where we focus. If you're doing just some prevention, then I would be sprinkling them in every single day, at least doing some sort of rotational movement, some sort of rotator cuff strengthening, a couple different exercises every day.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. I'm to the point where it hurts to shoot. And so if I want to go out and shoot, I do these movements before I go out and shoot. Now I hope to get to the place, my goal is to get to the place where it no longer hurts to shoot. We've fixed the problem. So now let's just sprinkle these in through daily workouts to help, prevent the problem long-term. That was my kind of idea behind this, was like, okay, I need to, every morning before I shoot, spend 10 minutes doing this, to help this get better. But I'm also, on upper body days, sprinkling a couple things in just from here on out. Like, hey, let's make this part of our regular programming now,
Yep. Yeah, no, I think that's the way to do it. Every day I'm doing some sort of rotator cuff strengthening and exercises. A few days a week, lifting heavy, doing other exercises and training, and doing our academy and everything. So that is all part of it. But I think every day for me, it's doing at least some form of rotator cuff strengthening, because I know how important that is for archery and just maintaining shoulder health. Maintaining shoulder health, really. I mean, there was a study that I looked at, I posted about it, kind of shared about it, that over the age of 80, there's an 80% chance of having a rotator cuff tear. 75% of those are managed without having surgery. Those are pretty good numbers. 75% of people are able to manage this with just physical therapy, rehab training, those sorts of things. And so now many of our archers aren't 80 years old, but there are some that are shooting. My goal is to continue to help people shoot up to that age or longer as they want. And I know that we need to be doing a lot of good exercises and rehab with that, rehab exercises. So I bring that up because there's a big chance that everyone has, there's a high likelihood that a lot of people have some rotator cuff issues, whether they played sports, whether they, fell, skied, got injured, anything like that, just overuse. The majority of them do not need to have anything drastic done. The majority of them really respond to just simple exercises and exercises that we do. And so the majority of them don't need surgery. There are some, that's why we do this, one-on-one evaluation consultation, because I really want to help guide people that way and say, oh yeah, you do need surgery. This is what you need to do, or you do need an injection, or you do need anything else like that. But it really starts with that one-on-one evaluation to make sure nothing else is drastic going on that's going to affect you long-term, if that makes sense.
So what are the specific movements? If you were to give somebody, and I know my movements, you showed me last week, but what would you show? Hey, these are 3-4 things you need to start doing, daily if you're hurting already. But if you're not hurting already, start sprinkling these in, to stay healthy.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites. So grabbing exercise bands, so grabbing exercise bands, standing. I guess if people can see this video, if they're watching this video, I'll kind of show. But grabbing exercise bands in this position here, arms out in front of you with your palms up, your elbows are making a 90 degree, and then what you're doing is you're engaging your scapula. So kind of setting your scapula and then rotating outward like that. So that's a great one because you're targeting that rotator cuff. You're targeting that posterior cuff. You're targeting the posterior deltoid. That's all very important for archery. So that's one of my absolute favorites.
And you don't need a heavy band for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You don't need a heavy band. We got a bunch of bands on our website, but you don't need anything like that. Super heavy. You can go as heavy as you want. You can double this up. I can't do it with 4. You can make 4 loops, I guess, or 4 strings. You can do 1, 2, 3. But anything like that to just make, so then what's nice about that is you can gradually progress. You can, throw in those periodization kind of principles where you're kind of adding now resistance, sets, reps, and kind of change up that whole scheme that way. So that's number one. I love that exercise. People will always see it. It's in a lot of my YouTube warm-up videos. It's in throw these bands. They're simple enough to throw in your bow case. They're simple enough to really honestly take. This weighs nothing to take in a backpack when you're hiking and when you're hunting. If you're sitting there doing nothing, or sitting in the shade in August as we're bow hunting mule deer and stuff, sit in the shade and you can do a little bit of this just to kind of get that rotator cuff, keep that rotator cuff moving with some blood flow. Simple to take. So that's number one. I'd say number two. Now this, again, I go back to, I want to make sure I bring in a lot of data that this good article in 2017 looked at kind of what are the primary exercises to target the rotator cuff musculature, and what movements are those. The next one was, so it's basically in a bent over position. So I'm going to say a hinged position at your hips, bending over. So then you're going against gravity and you're going to raise your arms up. You can either raise it up into a Y position or you can raise it out into a T position. That really targets the rotator cuff as well. And that's the nice thing about that is that actually targets all 4 of the rotator cuff muscles. And So the whole purpose there is to make, get more bang for your buck. And so that targets all of them. That's a great exercise there. And then lastly, really any sort of scapular motion. So rowing, right? A lot of rowing is really good there. Rowing's targeting a lot of the periscapular muscles. So those rhomboids and stuff. And people think like, oh yeah, the rhomboids are the number one exercise for shooting a bow. Well, really, it's actually more like the posterior deltoid, the trap, the low trap, the rotator cuff there. Those rhomboids definitely help, but they're not the key driver really. Their focus more is at full draw in the holding phase to just stabilize that scapula. So anyways, rhomboids, any rowing motion for those rhomboids would be really good too. So those 3 exercises, targeting your rotator cuff, and then you're targeting that those scapular muscles. But a lot of those, as you can see, are kind of this like pulling type motion.
Yeah. And sometimes, some people are in their everyday life, some people are push heavy and some people are pull heavy, and so I would challenge you to start noticing what am I missing? Like, what am I weaker in? What am I, and this isn't just for archery, this is for everyday life, but like, what movement am I weaker in, pushing or pulling? And then start focusing on that a little bit to be more well-rounded. So very cool. Preston, what can they do if they are hurting? Like if they need you, if they think, man, I got to talk to this guy, how do you recommend getting in touch with you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Like I said, we have, we're revamping, like I said, we have a team now of individuals. And so it's nice to not have to do it all by myself. There's myself, physical therapist. We got another physical therapist, a couple others that we're working with as well. And so a lot of different options to getting a hold of us that way, and working with me or other people, trainers and things like that we have on our team. So our team's growing. I bring that up because we have a key team member right now who's going through the entire website, redeveloping everything like that. And it looks really good. It's really getting, I really like how it's going. So it's simple. You can go online, basically, go to mountainphysio.com. So www.mountainphysio, that's spelled MTNPHYSIO.com. I'm sure you'll put the links in, mountainphysio.com. And there's a big red button there that you can click either scheduling, or you can click the button and say, set up your free consultation. We can jump on a free, 15-minute consultation. And I do that because I really want to make sure that it's right. I really want to make sure people that if they're having some shoulder pain, I can answer some questions, or we can kind of take it to that next step, set up those appointments. And so certainly you can, if you're having this shoulder pain, if you want it to be addressed, like I said, with us as experts of bow hunters, physical therapists, doctors, then you can go on and you can just schedule right away. We got a couple different options of scheduling, but you can click on the scheduling link. You can pick a day that works for you. I do a lot of stuff. The majority of my stuff is virtual. So we do a lot of virtual coaching, rehab, physical therapy. Like I said, I got physical therapists spread out across the country. It's cool. We're growing. We're seeing, we've been seeing patients, all across the globe, really, into New Zealand, Australia, Canada, all over Europe. And so it's really fun to see us growing that way.
That's cool,
of
man.
People really seeing the need for physical therapy. So that's the one spot, mountainphysio.com, mountainphysioacademy.com. Spelled the same way, is a good resource. And that's where you can get a lot of one-on-one coaching. And so I'm doing that where you're getting one-on-one coaching for an annual health assessment, or basically monthly coaching for a year. So a lot of different options. Season's coming up here. The season, I think, is for us 108-ish days away for archery, for bow hunting, elk, deer, things like that. And so it's really coming up. Now's the time to kind of jump on this and at least get all those aches and pains kind of worked out, get the right plan. I always say that, with these podcasts and stuff like that, giving a lot of good information. My YouTube channel has a lot of information. Instagram, I put a lot of information on there. My goal is to, I hope my goal is to work myself out of a job. And I hate saying that, but I want to give people the education, and I want to give people the knowledge, the facts to be able to rehab themselves. And then if they do have questions, and if they, if something else comes up, then we can help them as well. But I want to do that. And I don't know if I necessarily will. We've been staying super busy. And there's enough people shooting and getting hurt, and not even getting hurt, but just wanting to really train and prevent that stuff, that they're reaching out. So we got a lot of cool platforms and a lot of cool different ways of helping people. So definitely, if you have questions or if this is interesting, let me know, because I'm happy to jump on a call, anything.
And guys, this isn't just shoulder pain. I mean, if you're having trouble getting up the mountain because of knee pain or ankle pain, whatever. I mean, if you're struggling with anything, I would highly encourage you to get with Preston. He's a phenomenal guy, super helpful, super just an all-around good guy. So anything that you're struggling with, and we will have Preston back on at some point to talk about keeping healthy knees, healthy hips. Who knows? We'll talk more with Preston, because my main goal for Train Wild is, not to give you one specific program you have to do to be ready for the mountain, but just help you live a happier, healthier, longer lifestyle, be able to be on the mountain longer, in the woods longer, shoot your bow longer, because that's what we love doing. It's what we're passionate about. Guys, it is not often that a product comes around that is just a game changer. I introduce you to the Paper Tuner from papertuner.com. This is a game-changing paper tuner design that is designed from the ceiling down to help you tune your compound, your recurve, your longbows. Best news of all, it's going to take up zero floor space, and it only costs $75. This is engineered so it's easy to use, very quick to set up and take down with magnetic quick disconnects. It takes you a couple seconds to hang it up, to shoot through your paper, and then take it back down and hang it back on the wall, taking up zero room in your garage, your shop, your basement, wherever you're tuning bows. There's no bulky equipment. It's easy to use. It's fast to use. It's going to cost you $75, and everything that you need to hang it and use it is going to be in one box. It took me about 5 minutes to hang this initially, and then it takes a couple seconds to put it up and take it down anytime I want to shoot through paper. Guys, if you do any kind of work on your bows, or if you just want to ensure that your bows are shooting as good as they possibly can, I would highly, highly encourage you to get a paper tuner from papertuner.com. It's the best design I have ever seen for a paper tuner. So I would highly encourage you, papertuner.com. Go pick one up. Very easy to set up, very easy to use, zero floor space, very quick, very effective. And one of the coolest parts, in my opinion, all around the frame of the paper tuner, it's got what you need to see to know how to move your rest or how to tune your bow in order to take out the tears that you are getting. Guys, go check out papertuner.com. It's a phenomenal design. It's going to change the way you paper tune your bows. Papertuner.com. Get yourself a paper tuner. Thank you so much for listening. Y'all have a fantastic week.